Okay, thank you everyone. Happy Sunday. Hope we are keeping well. Thanks for joining. This is class number 4. We are going to pick up from where we left things yesterday. Just a quick recap on what we covered yesterday. We did look at how we basically we looked at what cloud platform looks like, and why would you need or use a cloud platform. And in the course of having that conversation, we did make mention of the popular cloud platform known as AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and the rest of them. And then from that, we then went on to look at how what the cloud models look like in terms of the IaaS, the PaaS, and the SaaS. What those mean and how what their relevance are in terms of um, the cloud architecture, essentially.
That's a very
So
tough.
we are going to continue from there today. One thing I want to quickly show us, which is very important, is before we start today class, is probably how to do some of the things we did on AWS. Just see how it would look like if you wanted to do the same on the Azure platform. And that was just going to be like a sort of a side teaser. The main thing we will be looking at today will be version control. We'll come to that at some, after I've kind of take a quick detour to Azure, but we will then come back to version control to see what it's about and why you would need one. So the two things I want to emphasize today is version control, and then I also want to, at some point today, I want to discuss about certification path, because a good chunk of people on this court are on here to get their DevOps gig, hopefully. And the two things that will take us there obviously will be knowledge of, DevOps, which is obviously we kind of overemphasize. But more importantly, also, we need to have some certification to back up our knowledge. So how we're going to kind of get to that is something I want to discuss about today as well. So it's going to be a quick detour to the Azure platform, and then we'll come to discuss version control, and then we're going to discuss certification path. Because as we are sort of taking care of ourselves on the sort of the core technology part, we also need to understand the game we are in, which is the game of knowing your stuff and having some papers to back your knowledge up. So we have to kind of square those two pegs to be able to have a shot as to getting a role or a job in the market. So without much ado, let's crack on. So before version control and everything, I wanted to take a look at what some of the things we looked at yesterday before we then go to the Azure platform. So yesterday, we did look at, which is pop back on. Can we have everybody on mute? I can hear some people sort of speaking in the background. Let me see. Yeah, thank you. Everybody on mute, that would be great. Cynthia is not on mute, Ahmed's not on mute. Okay, all right, cool. All right, so we did look at this yesterday, and we made mention of the fact that obviously looking at implementing a simple website hosting as an IaaS or PaaS, PaaS or infrastructure as service platform. If you're looking at infrastructure as service platform, you're looking at you taking ownership of a VM system and using that as your base to prepare all you need, knowledge, software you need to install, configuration, and all the sweat you have to put into getting this working. So we did say that it takes a lot of effort to, work off infrastructure as service, but you get the benefit of cost, you get the benefit of flexibility, you get the benefit of you not being boxed in terms of what you can do. So you have a lot of flexibility, you have a lot of control, and potentially you'll be saving cost. And what we looked at yesterday was how you can play with an artifact that's been put on a repository, in this case GitHub, and how you can kind of find get that into a machine, and then obviously then using Nginx as the web platform, use that to host a web artifact. So we kind of play with that using the Azure, the AWS platform. So two things I want to do. The first thing is, of course, I want to show us how this will look like if you wanted to use the Azure platform, with that kind of Azure focus or Azure bias, just to see that it's almost the same thing. And then discuss how we would manage connectivity going forward. So I don't want to waste too much time because we have a lot to cover today. So I'm going to try and log on to the Azure platform and see if I can do that from here. I'm not sure. Azure. So what I want to do, just to recap, is I want to set up a machine on the Azure cloud, just as we done on AWS, and then try to, it's not this, what I'm looking for, bear with me. Right. So what I want to do is I want to sign up to my Azure platform. So I go to just say Azure. Azure portal, Azure portal, sure. And then you say sign in. Hopefully you have your own account as well. So this is my account. Don't know why my screen is touching here. So I'll select, I'll authenticate using my fingerprint. And then I should be in. I don't know what authentication you have set up, but should just be hopefully seamless for you to authenticate into the Azure platform. So this is my Azure platform. This is what it looks like. So what I want to do is basically, let's see that. Bear with me. Trying to load my. All right. So this is the Azure platform. I think I just want to put it just next to AWS so we can contrast a little bit. Let's see if I can do that real quick. Let's see. Next. Just getting, let me do my method of authentication. And then in. Right. So text me to amplify, that's fine. So if I go here, AWS then is just a bit slow these days, but if I go here to response, did I know why it's so slow these days? Okay, cool. So if I go to all applications. They really need to improve this thing. I don't know why it's just a bit temperamental. Temperamental. Just bear with me. I do not know why it's not responsive. Reputation. See what for me if that comes back with anything. Okay, still thinking about it. Why that is jolly spinning away. So still do not know why it won't come back. Okay, let's do our services. Just go favorites then. This is so strange. Okay, it doesn't seem responsive. I don't know. They have responsive service that I can. So all services. Ground console home, right? Services, applications. Anyways, this is just not popping up as we've seen it before. All services. Okay, there you go. I don't know why it's so slow. So these are all the services that in one go that you see on the AWS platform to do categorize into different groups. The same way you kind of see all Azure services, which you can click here to see more of it. And you can see them over here. They're kind of sort of matching compute and you see compute and all the rest of it. So they're all kind of similar. So we would replicate what we did yesterday, which was spinning up a machine, connecting to the machine, etc. We're just gonna try that here on the actual platform. So if I want to do that, the two things I want to quickly explain, but I'm just going to explain as we go along. Bear in mind that the platform that we are going to be a bit biased towards as far as this cohort is concerned is going to be AWS. But every now and again, we're going to pop onto the Azure platform, maybe sometime or even on Google platforms, just show you a few things just to kind of emphasize the similarities between those platforms. But the platform of choice, as far as we are concerned, this code would be AWS platform. That is not to say that you have to do your project on AWS platform. You have to choose a platform that is convenient for you and the one that you kind of sort of be favorably accustomed to or favorably sort of used to. You use that for your project. I will be able to support you and help you on whichever platform you choose. But for the learning process, just to kind of not complicate things too much, you will majorly focus on the Azure platform or the AWS platform. But to kind of replicate what we did on the AWS on Azure here, so what we need to do is just go to compute. Here, what we want to basically set up, we want to set up which is called a virtual machine. So why my screen is a bit temperamental today. So what we want to set up is a virtual machine. You can see it here. So we're gonna say we want to create a virtual machine. And then you say create a virtual machine. And then a few things that probably not exactly as AWS would come up, which we need to talk about quickly. So the first thing is your Azure subscription. You need to have a subscription in order to create a resource on the Azure platform. So it's almost like your account container for billing and access. So this is how you kind of define what and how you make payment and who's able to access the resources inside. This is just how Azure will be able to kind of manage who pays, how you pay, etc. So in terms of sort of what the billing structure will look like. So you always need to have a subscription. So if you don't have a subscription, you can just create one. And the next one will be a resource group. So resource group is more of like a logical container for your Azure resources. It's a way, if you like, it's almost like a folder that you can use to group resources together. So any resource you create, knowledge, virtual machines, networks, um, files, folders, whatever, they have to belong to a resource group, which is like a big folder that is sort of storing them logically. So it's the way you will logically group assets or artifacts together on the Azure platform. So if you need to create a resource group, let's just say for now, we say week two resource group, create that. And then we'll create our virtual machine, which is going to be our Linux machine in this case. Let's call it web server. Let's call it web server. Put it together like that. It's easier. Right. And then I don't need all this. Cool. So we're gonna choose Europe North as our location. I wouldn't change this too much. Then we're gonna come here. So to say, so the zone will just be availability. So we are gonna cover this, as we kind of go along in this in the code. But there's something. So the virtual machine trusted and Ubuntu image. So this is the kind of operating system image you want to use. I'm going to choose Ubuntu. This is going to be slightly different to the Linux platform. This is the Linux platform that will run on the VM. This is the operating system of the VM. It's a Linux, but it's a different Linux. I'm going to explain that in a bit. But as we kind of go along, here it's saying that the configuration I'm going for is not in the data center, the zone I've chosen. So it's advising me to choose zone 2. Just gonna choose zone 2 in this case, just to make things go well. So that error message is gone now. So it's then asking me how I want to authenticate onto the platform. I will say I want to use SSH key. And the same way, if you remember on the AWS platform, you can select create a key as well. So we say generate a new key. Okay. So generate a new key. It's going to create a key for you, and we can call it week 2 key, week 2 key. Let's call it that. And then so this is how we're going to connect. After all is said and done, we say we want to connect via port 22. If you recall, that's how we're going to connect. And this is going to be the Azure VM when it's created. This is the port 22, but we need to do port 80 as well, because after the Nginx is all set up, we want to be able to connect to it and use it. So people coming from outside will be able to access the web page when it's hosted on the Nginx platform. So we need to make sure we expose port 80 as well. So we'll come here. We say we want to expose port 80 as well. And I guess that should cover it. I don't want to spend too much time, but I don't want to jump too many steps either. So I'm gonna create, and then I'm gonna wait. So it will take some time. It needs to create probably needs to give me the key actually as well. And needs to create the resource group before it then proceeds to. So it's sort of done the initial validation. We'll check that whatever I'm trying to do makes sense. Validation passed, and then I'll say create. I'm expecting to give you my keys first. Okay, there you go. So download key. This is the key I'm going to use to open up the machine. So download key. Key is downloaded. It's with 2 key, and I can return to the virtual. I can continue with the virtual stuff creation. So, right. So it's being created, sort of ongoing. And when it's all said and done, it would tell us, it would say, okay, now it's creating the virtual machine. You can see it's almost exactly the same step. Of course, we are glossing over a lot of steps now, just to kind of simplify things a little bit. All the extra bits that we are sort of jumping over, we would revisit them as we go in the course of the program. So it's done now. So we go to resource. You can see we have a beautiful IP address that we can use to connect to, and then we can try to connect. Got it. So you can connect from here, but I wanted to show us how you would connect if you were sort of connecting from your local machine. Essentially, because obviously you can connect over the web here as well. But I want to show us how you connect from local machine if you wanted to connect from a local machine. What that means is it is not every time you'll be connecting from the browser here. Sometimes it makes sense to use your local machine to connect instead of connecting from the console here. And I'm gonna show us in 2 ways how you connect. Remember that we did download the key here. Okay. And also one thing I want to show us, let's go back to overview, is when the machine is created, it has an IP address. That is very, very important. The username that was created with the machine is called Azure user. That's username we're going to use to connect. And when we connect to this system, it will be a Linux. It will be Ubuntu Linux that we will be connecting to. So I'm going to show us how you connect. If you are coming on from, if you're using a Mac machine, I will show us how to connect, and I will also try to show us how we connect if you are connecting from the Windows machine. But with that, probably there's a bit of a difference. Now you do the connection. So what do I mean? So this machine that's created now. So if we kind of draw a new line, so let's save this up as, let's save as, let's save as class 3, and then we can do class 4 today. So new, okay, now new one. So what we're doing today is, let's say this is the Azure platform. Okay, huge. So we've created a virtual machine on there. So this is green and the virtual machine is blue. So we are kind of doing it from our home. We are going over the internet, and okay, and then we are doing all those beautiful things. So this is the VM. So usually what we do is we would use the console, which is the Azure console. Console, what I mean by console is just there. This is the web, this web thing is the console. To do all the clicking and creation and all the rest of it, we use a console for that. But when we want to connect, we don't necessarily have to use a console. For AWS also, we always use a console, AWS console, in terms of how we do our things when we set up machine. But when we want to start connecting and using the system, in reality, you will not be connecting to this VM via the console. you will not be connecting to the VM via the console. You will be connecting directly over port 22. SSH 22. You will not be using the console to connect to the VM. You won't have to. Of course, when we create the machine, we do it from the console, but to be connecting to the machine, there's no reason why you should use the console and click and then connect from there. As we would with AWS as well, we always use the console. We set up an EC2, and then we use the console to do all the connections, etc. Looks like my screen is a bit shaky, but it's crack on. It continues. I'll have to pay some attention. Please pardon. Okay, so we launch a system, we create a system, but when we connect to the console. So I'm just going forward, we will not be doing that. The reason for that is, let's say you have 10, 20, 30 machines, you will not be connecting to the console to then connect to the machine in question. You want to bypass the console to be able to use the machine you create anytime without having to use the console. That's what we're going to see in action. So we have this machine created. So we are going to connect to it, but not using the console. We're going to connect directly. How do we do that? This is the IP address, right? So what we do, if you're on a Mac machine, what you have to do, and I'm going to explain for Windows users as well. The first thing you have to locate is the key that you've created, which was downloaded for you. You need to find the location of that key. In my case, this key obviously is what you will use to, for lack of a better word, unlock the machine that is created to authenticate to it. To authenticate to the machine, you need the machine name, you need the IP address of the machine, you need the username that was used in creating the machine, and then you need the key. Okay. So how do I connect? So the way I will connect is I will open my terminal on my local machine. So if I go to the diagram I have, so what I need to do, I've used the console to create the machine, the VM. The VM is there now. So I don't want to use the console anymore to connect to the VM. So what I would do on my local machine here, so I've got my local machine here. What I will do with my local machine is I will open a terminal on my local machine, and I will use a protocol called SSH. It is from here on my local machine, I will then use SSH to connect, and then it will take me to the machine. So I need to open a terminal on my local machine so that I can then connect to the VM. So what does that mean? So that means that if you're on using the Mac machine, you just type terminal, and then that brings the command line on your local machine. This is still me on my local machine. I'm still kind of here. I've not gone over the internet. I'm on my local machine here. Then I need to first and foremost find the key that was downloaded for me when I provisioned the machine. So if you recall, it's in my downloads. So I come here, downloads. You can see the key there. I think it's week 2 key. So I need to go to that download. So the way you would do it is if you're on the terminal, let's clear the screen. Let's do clear. So all you need to do, because you might not know where you find yourself, so you just type CD first, and then you say CD download if you're on a Mac machine. Okay. And then you would do ls-ltr, and then you can see the key here. Okay. So this is still on our local machine, don't forget that. The next thing we want to do is we want to change the permission on the key. It is important, I will explain that later, but let's just Bear with me now. You need to change the permission on the key to just read only for you. And then you say change mode. And then you say 400. And then you mention the key name, web key, blah, 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 pen. I think that's the key. And then I'll change the key. So one thing I've noticed is, no, sorry, that's the wrong key. The key is week 2. Bear with me. So change mode week 2. When you are creating your key, try not to put space because it might complicate things a little bit for you. Week 2 underscore key. I can change mode 400. Week 2 key. So when you're creating your key, please try not to make space and don't use any funny characters. It will make your life a lot easier. So, and then you do that. We are still on a local machine. That the key, permission of the key is changed. We will talk about this later, but just do it, especially if you're on Mac. With Windows, you might not need to do this change mode. If you're on a Mac machine, you will need to do change mode. Then you use the SSH protocol. You say SSH minus I, which is specify the key. The key we are going to use to open the machine is week 2, the same key. And then we need to connect to the machine using the username that was created for the machine when we created it, which was Azure user, I believe. And then at the machine IP address. If we go, the IP address of the machine, you have to use the public IP address of the machine. You select that. That's the how you get to the machine. And then let's get that here. Copy. And then paste. And if we do that, should be able to connect. And let's say, I've not seen this machine before. Are you sure you want to connect to it? We'll say yes. And then Bob is your uncle, should be in. Okay, we're on the machine now. So what's happened? So what's happened is we go using that diagram. My screen is so infuriating today. So what's happened is we use SSH. We basically said from our machine here, we said something like SSH minus I, some key, and some key. And then we say Azure user at IP address. And then that will basically take us and connect us to this machine. That way on this machine. So the beauty about that is we don't need this console anymore. We don't have to connect from the console. We can always connect from the command line. So that's how you would do it. It's similar to AWS. So I'm just going to show us. This is obviously on Azure, and then you can begin to do all the rest of the things you want to do on Azure here. So this is the VM, and then you can play with it. I'm going to contrast that to AWS quickly. I'm going to do that from the Windows machine so that you can see the similarity and difference. So I don't use a Windows machine, but I have a login on here. So I'm going to switch that user on this Zoom thing, and I'm going to use that to try to play with Windows. So bear with me. Let me just set that up quickly, just 1 minute. And what I want to do, obviously, you know that what we've done now is create a machine, a VM on the Azure platform, and from my local machine, connect to it. You're going to replicate the same thing using use AWS, but I will try to connect from Windows just to show you the difference if you are connecting from a Windows rather than on Mac. Obviously, if it will be the same process, if you're on Windows, the way you will connect to Azure is the name way you connect to Azure's machine is the way you connect to Windows machine. But because I just showed you how to do it from a Mac platform. So I want to go on a Windows platform. Then I'll use that Windows platform to play with AWS to kind of show you how it would kind of play out. So please bear with me. I will let me just set out quickly. I will connect with a different user on the Zoom platform, and then we'll take it from there. 1 sec. Okay, I'm gonna switch user now. I'm gonna switch to just gonna allow this person to share. Yeah, me. Share screen. I'm gonna stop sharing for 1 minute. Stop share. And I'm gonna share from here. Screen. Okay. Cool. Okay, cool. So this is me on the Windows platform. Okay. All right. So I will try to spin up an EC2. Spin up an EC2. So gelling. So I would say, is it instance running? Let's just click on that, launch instance. So let's call it a web server. Server. Okay. And then scroll down a little bit. Now I'm not gonna choose Ubuntu. So you can begin to, I begin to appreciate the difference now. So the platform I want to use, or operating system platform, Amazon Linux, I could have chosen Ubuntu. Doesn't matter. There's obviously, there's a little bit of difference between Amazon Linux compared to Ubuntu Linux. We'll come to that at some point. But let's just kind of go with the default now. So we choose Amazon Linux as our OS platform. We choose this AMI, Amazon Machine Image. We'll just go with default. Instance type, we're still going to stick with T3 Micro. We'll come here. We want to create a key. And then we'll say create a new key. And then we'll say call it with to AWS. And then let's call it that as a PEM key. We'll create it, and that should download the key, create. And then you see the keys downloaded. So hopefully in our download box, we're going to find it in a bit. Okay, and then all the information is all right. We allow HTTP access and on port 80, and I guess that covers it. Okay, and then we'll launch. Okay, that's creating it. So let's go find the key real quick. We need the key. So now on a Windows platform, which is probably what majority of you guys are running, the way because you won't have the terminal, as I did on the Mac machine, you won't have terminal. So you have to use a different way of connecting. Obviously, we do not want to connect via the console, which is what we've been doing for a while. So we don't want to use this connect method, which is what we'll be using until now. Of course, this works, but this is not the best way because that means every time you want to use the system, you have to come here to click to connect. It's not ideal. When you're creating the machine, you don't have to come to the console to connect to the machine. So how would you connect if the machine is there? That's the IP address. So you need to find the key and then you need to connect from your local machine using your own terminal. So the way you do it on a Windows machine is you go to the search area here, you type git bash. So this is one of the things I asked us to install prior to starting this program. So you click on git bash. And that open this up nicely for you. So this is almost like your own terminal now. So the next thing we need to do, we are still on the local machine. We are not on the VM yet. This is still your Windows machine. Don't think because it's black screen, you're on the server. This is still your local machine. A lot of people get this wrong. So now we need to find the key that we downloaded. So I need to go look for that key. So that key is here. So I need to check the folder. Let me sure I get the folder name. So it's in downloads. Okay, so it's in download. It's called with two blah blah blah. So what I need to do is still go to my. This is still the Git bash thing. So I will say cd to downloads. You can see that. Always, you can always use the tab key to finish. You don't have to finish typing it. Just say tab and then cd to that. If you ls minus ltr, it should be at the bottom. Ls minus ltr. Let's see if it comes back real quick. So pardon me, this Windows machine I'm using is quite beat up, so it's not the fastest. Hopefully this comes back. Hope he hasn't given out the ghost. Okay, finally, so you can see the key here. So all you have to do is the same thing. You don't have to do the ch mode 400 I did on the Mac machine if you're using a Mac. But if you're using Windows, you should be able to just get the key. Just say SSH minus I, the week 2, AWS PAM, blah, blah, blah. You then say the user on AWS to connect to AWS EC2 is not Azure user. It is EC2 user. Then at the machine name, which is, you can grab the IP address, or you can grab the IP address of the machine name. So let's just grab the IP address here and go back there and then kind of paste it. And then that should be it, actually. And then we'll say yes. And then Bob is your uncle. So this is how you will connect to the machine. So this is now you doing it from your local machine. So you are on the machine now, you're on the system. You are no longer on your local machine, you're on the VM. And you can begin to do all the things we did yesterday, like you sudo minus I to become root if you want. Now you can yum away, yum install Nginx, etc. So the operating system we are using here on the AWS platform is called AWS Amazon Linux, whereas the one we're playing with on the Azure platform is Ubuntu Linux. So it's just like, what's the difference? So the difference is, say we speak, for just lack of better analogy, say we speak Yoruba. Yoruba is a language, but there's now the Jebu dialect and there's the Ibadan dialect. You know, the Jebu probably will say eso to say hello. Maybe Ibadan will say bawoni. They're still saying the same thing, but they're kind of saying in different ways. Foundation language is the same, but there are subtle differences in the dialect. And this is what you see on as far as Linux platform is concerned. So there's if you like, what we call the Debian family and the Red Hat family. So in the Debian family, you have things like SUSE Linux, Debian Linux, Ubuntu Linux, and so forth. By the way, Ubuntu Linux was designed in South Africa. So it's South Africans that built it. And it's a very beautiful operating system. So Ubuntu Linux is a variant of Linux. Amazon Linux, another variant. So when you start using them, you will see sort of subtle differences in how they kind of work. The concept is the same, but the way they kind of go about it is different. So you will see that the commands are not exactly the same when you use them, but essentially it's all Linux, right? So yeah, so this is how you will connect, and then you can exit when you're done. Exit to make sure you get out of the machine, and now you are back to your local machine. If you want to go back and connect to the server, you can connect again, and you're back in the server. You can exit the server, and so on and so forth. So this is how you kind of do things. And I'm gonna switch back now. Hopefully I've shown that. So I'm gonna share my screen from here. Desktop 2. Right. Okay. So, and yeah, so that was sort of connecting to the VM. So we've seen how you would, this is me on the AWS, oh sorry, on the Azure Linux platform. And then I just showed us how to connect on the AWS Linux platform. Obviously, connecting to Azure, connecting to AWS, depending on your operating system, if you're on Windows, you will use Git Bash. If you're on Mac, you will use your terminal. So, and that's the best way to connect. So you won't have to use the web console all the time to connect. So you don't need to see the web console to actually begin to use the machine. Because the machine is there, you can connect to it and you can exit here. Just me exiting the Azure platform at the Azure VM and connecting back again. Okay. So I'm going to leave it to you. So this machine, if you want to find out, so when you jump on the machine, then just throw, this is just a throwaway, by the way. When you get on the machine and you want to find what kind of machine is this? The Linux machine, but what variant is it? Is a SUSE platform, or is a Debian platform? What kind of platform is it? You can use this command, you can say /etc slash asterisk release asterisk. So this will tell you the details about the system. So I say this is an Ubuntu, this is the release version, this is the details, this is all the rest, blah, blah, blah. So okay, definitely this is not a Debian platform or version Ubuntu. So Debian is like you're saying is Yoruba, but it's Ijebu. Okay, then because you can have that Debian variant like as well. So and that's how you're gonna get the information. So anytime you jump on the machine, if you want to get the detail, just do etc release, and it will give you all the details about the machine. On Ubuntu, yum would not work. So they use apt-get, just bear that in mind. Oh, yum does actually work. Okay, yum doesn't work. You will use a different package manager. They call it apt-get. It's almost the same thing like yum. So for example, if I wanted to install Nginx on Ubuntu, I'm not going to use yum because yum does not work on Ubuntu. If you say yum install Nginx, let's say let's even put sudo in front, sudo yum install Nginx and Nginx, it won't work because it doesn't use no yum. So what you have to use is apt-get, sudo apt-get, apt-get install Nginx, Nginx. Then yeah, and that's to then do the installation. So they use apt-get, not yum, because it's a different type of operating. It's a different types of Linux, different type of Linux. So I'm gonna leave this to you to kind of play around, set it up, copy the files, get Git, all the things we did yesterday. If you want to practice it on the Azure virtual machine, Ubuntu, and just do the same thing. Even though it's going to be exactly straightforward, but it's something for you to kind of get your hand into and try to crack it and see how far you get. Obviously, if you're stuck, let me know. I just thought we showed this to kind of show you that it's all similar. The terminology might be different and the way you go about it might be different, but ultimately it's the same. So let's just conclude. And I'm thinking, or maybe I should finish it just for as an exercise. Why not? Let's finish it. Okay, let's finish it. Looking at the time. So just go back to the little diagram. So what have we done? So we created a VM. So we've connected to the VM. Remember that what we want to do ultimately is to have something like this, right? But from like using the Azure platform. So we go back to our little diagram. So with the VM is there, we basically have Nginx running on it. So remember that the artifact we need is sitting in GitHub /techblades, and I think it's called school something, school portal. So this is the location. This is what we need to get onto the machine. So we go to code, we go HTTP, we're going to copy this, but we go back to the terminal. So we need to install Git. Usually, I think Ubuntu comes with Git by default, but if it doesn't, you can always install it. Let's see, does it have Git? It does have Git by default, so you don't have to install Git. So what we then need to do, if you didn't have Git, you would have used apt-get to install Git. So we will make directory, call it temp as we did yesterday. Oh, sorry, temp already exists. So let's cd, let's change to temp. So in temp directory, we're going to make a directory. Let's call it workspace. Then we'll cd to workspace. So within workspace, now we'll then do git clone as we did yesterday. We'll then clone that repo down here. And then that gets us the repo. And if you do ls, you will see the folder. You go in the folder. Then you ls, you see the content. So what you then need to do next is basically copy those content over to the Nginx location. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to copy the files to, I think the location is different. Bear with me, let me cheat quickly. What I'm doing, I don't just want to look at something really quick. CTC Nginx site enabled, I think defaults. Something I want to check, because this is always different on platforms. Okay, so that's where we need to copy our files to. It's a bit different to if we're using the Nginx on AWS. So this is the location where the files need to be copied to. If you recall yesterday, we copied to a different location, which was USR. I think it was user slash HTTP, blah, blah, blah. So this one's this is the target location where we need to copy the files to. So the files here should be copied to that location. Just cp -r everything. Let's do sudo cp -r. Everything should go into that location. And then I guess that's it. And then we'll basically just start the Nginx system on here. So we do sudo service Nginx start. We've done the right thing, it should just work. And then if I don't remember the IP address. So this is all working now. So we've copied the file. Remember, this is all on the Azure platform where we're running Ubuntu. I want to get the IP address. Just to I don't remember the IP address. So that's the IP address. So if we copy this IP address and put on our browser, if we've done everything correct, it should just work. So we do HTTP -- and then paste that. And then if we've done it right, it should just work. Yep, there we go. It works. So this is all coming from Azure now. From this machine. Because if we stop it now, it won't work anymore. We refresh. Sometime, yeah, I see that it's gone. We play back. And then we refresh. And then it's back. So this is all coming from Azure. Obviously, from an end user standpoint, you don't really care if it's Azure or AWS or Ubuntu Linux or AWS Linux. You don't really care. You don't even know. All you are particular about as an end user, which if we go by a little diagram, will be somebody sitting here using the browser and sort of browsing the web. And the web is going to that machine to fetch it. He doesn't know if it's a VM or Windows or whatever is running by Azure. He doesn't care. He doesn't know. It just uses it. But you that you're setting up, you know what you've done to kind of get things from that point up to getting everything working. So I thought I'd just show that just to kind of illustrate the similarities. If you wanted to kind of destroy this now, This is on the Azure platform. So what you'll be targeting is to find the resource group. Let's go recent. Let's see. Resource group. Okay, cool. So on my dashboard, my resource screen just keeps flickering. So that's my resource group. I'm gonna click on it. And what I want to do to my resource group is basically delete it. So I want to delete everything. Just say delete. And I'll say I want to force whatever else is running. Just want to force it. And say delete, and that will clean everything out, the VM, the rest of it. There will go so that they don't keep charging you. And then you're clean. Obviously, the concept of resource group does not really exist on AWS. They kind of use tags, but we won't discuss that now. But just to clean up on your Azure platform, just delete, if you like, delete the resource group itself or everything in that resource group, and then you should be good. AWS, just target the VM and just basically select the VM and just say action, and then sorry, instance state, terminate, and then just say terminate. And then that should take care of the system for you, give you a clean machine to work. Okay, we got that out of the way. I took about an hour. I think it was worth it. So let's kind of go back to what we have in mind. So by the way, because the machine is gone, this will just hang now because the machine is dead. So usually it makes sense to exit before you kill the machine. But if you kill the machine, that's fine. You just be that. The only problem, you're just gonna be stuck on your terminal. So you're gonna have to find a way to close the terminal. And then right. Okay, cool. So today we want to talk about version control. I shared a couple of documents, I think, on the channel. So it's just going to be for your perusal, maybe during the week. Have a look, go through them, especially the cheat sheet, just to kind of familiarize yourself with the popular command on as far as version control is concerned. But what is version control and why do we need it? So I'm just going to take us back to the diagram we've been playing with. Yeah. If you recall, one of the things we mentioned when we were playing with the website setup thing was that obviously as a DevOps guy, you need to set up your VM and then do all those magical stuff to ensure that you have your website or the web page accessible for the end users. What's the mechanism that kind of drive this? The first thing that we have to remember, okay, Kunle, go for it. Are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I took it down and you called me. It's actually about the what you just explained around Azure. Um,
Mhm.
I had an account. What I've been opportune to know is that even if you have resources that are within Azure infrastructure, architecture, and you shut down your account and your uh, 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 um, credit card is still attached to that account, even if you've shut down, they can still bill you because you've not actually closed down all the infrastructure which created availability zone. So you need to shut them down before you close down your account. If you've not done that and you shut down, they can still use you. And what you've just shared around Azure, I'm just trying to know because I have been opportuned to see.
Okay, Kule, sorry. Just what's the question? Because I don't want to lose the momentum. So what's the question?
I just want to know, okay, in Azure, you need to shut down everything before you close down your account. But in Azure, am I meant to see exactly the same thing? Because you're telling me in
So what you need to
resource
do,
group,
yeah, what you
resource
need to
group,
do, what
when
you
you
need to do,
close, okay, you know where I'm going, so please.
yeah, what you need to do is just make sure that if you play if you're using a resource group, if you are playing with a resource group, in as much you delete the resource group, then you should be good. So it comes down to resource group. Everything that you create is within a resource group. The problem is if you have so many resource groups and you don't take care of them, then you might run into problem. But in as much you delete the resource group itself and you're doing a force delete because everything kind of exists within the resource group, then you would not,
Uh,
it's not possible to
please,
forget to delete something.
I'm
Except,
sorry. You have vast knowledge. But all I'm saying is that in Azure, please just let me know. In Azure, when you delete the resource group, everything it cascades and
yes, it does cascade. But the
and
problem is if you have too
gone.
many resource groups, yes, if you have many resource group and you are not taking care of them, then you might run into problem. But resource group
What
is the logical folder that holds everything together.
holds group resources. So when you delete at the high level, everything that
Correct. It
eh,
cascades down. Yep, yep,
but
that's it.
but
Yep.
in AWS, it's not like that.
That is correct. And that's
You-
what I said.
the-
So
Okay,
AWS is not like that. It's tags, and we will come to it at some
uh,
point.
uh,
That was just a passing
I,
statement.
I, I'm sorry, but I'm just trying because I am understanding, and that was why when I noticed you've gone on, I put down my hand because I just felt I need to understand this cascading or level. So
Mhm.
AWS understands how it goes, but Azure understands how it goes. If you delete the high level hierarchy, everything under the hierarchy is gone. But
That is
AWS, because
correct.
I've created an account,
Okay,
I
Kule,
was
I'm
told,
just
okay, no,
let's
I'm
do
gone,
let's do
I'm
the
gone,
after the class. Otherwise, we're gonna lose the
I'm
momentum. I'm
gone.
happy to take this after the class. Yeah,
So sorry, I'm gone, I'm gone.
that's fine. That's fine. So it's just to make sure we don't lose the momentum. So we can take this after the class and go a little bit deeper. It's a very valid question actually. So if you want me to shed more light, by all means, we can take that after we kind of run the session. So here, so just to kind of circle back a little bit. So what we are trying to do here, obviously, is look at version control. Yeah. So now I was trying to kind of go back to where we were coming from. So in terms of, you just continue with the analogy of setting up a website. We created a beautiful VM. We've deployed, we installed Nginx, we do all those beautiful stuff, and we're able to access the web page. But the bit we are kind of glossing over is how the artifacts that eventually, obviously made that kind of power the website, how they were built. What do I mean? If you recall, we did, where is it? These are the artifacts that kind of makes the website. The index page that we see, it's this little thing. So a developer would have, or a website designer would have done all this beautiful stuff. And these are the things we downloaded and that kind of eventually, created this beautiful thing. I can see the title one page, title two page. If you go here, you can see title two, title one, and they're all kind of point to the same image, image one, image one. And those images are in image folder and image one, image two. So all this thing we are looking at, a developer will have worked hard to set all this up. It's not really our remit to look into this, but somebody else will have done all this beautiful stuff. But there will be some sort of handshake if we go to the diagram. So you will have something like a developer here, maybe Mr. Foley, who is a good web designer, would have done all the beautiful work, the HTMLs, the CSS, the images, he would have prepared them. So he will run them on his own local machine. Oh, these are good. I like it. That's the developer. Say developer. So he will try to build the website. He will try on his local machine and it works. And when he's ready, he will speak to the DevOps guy and say, yeah, I've done the website. It looks good. Over to you now. I'm going to, are you ready to deploy to production? That the developer will ask the DevOps guy. The guy will say, yes, I'm ready to deploy. So what the developer would do, he would then push the code into a repo. There will be a push. And this is what we call, let's just put a text here. This is what we call a repository. For lack of a better word, we can, this repository is where you would put all these artifacts. Okay. Now, when it drops the stuff in the repository, the beauty about the repository is a very sophisticated repository. So in this repo, for example, called School Portal, you can create different buckets in this repository. You can create bucket main, you can create some other bucket, which we call branches, which we're going to look at in a bit. And so far, you can create them, and then the developer will push the code into whichever bucket he wants within the repository. Currently now it's pushing stuff into the main branch of that repo. So, and he would then from time to time begin to manipulate files here, which we're going to look at. He will begin to manipulate files here. And as he manipulates them, so for example, you might say, okay, the title one page doesn't really look good. Why is this using the same image? You should change it. Then they will look at it, oh, that's a bug. Why is it pointing to the same image? And developer guy will go back to the drawing board. He would make some changes and then we'll push an update. And then the update goes there, and then the DevOps guy would download again, and then would use the update that developer guy has made. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth in terms of somebody pushing updates into the repo, pushing an update into the repo, another person sort of downloading this update. So the repo is what connects everybody together. So without the repo, there will not be a way to share files. It's almost like your Microsoft what's it called? File share, essentially, where you would basically somebody pushes stuff, somebody downloads it. It's like a share folder where people can push stuff and download it. But it's more sophisticated than that because it enables you to version control what you put in. So for example, say somebody mistakenly deletes something, it's never lost because you can go to a previous version of the file, which you're gonna see at some point, and then you can retrieve things back. So it's not really possible to mistakenly delete stuff and not be able to find it. So the system that manages that is what we call version control system. And that is where artifacts are kept. This is very, very key to how DevOps works. So without the version control, there will not be a way to share files and stuff. So, and this will be an interview question. Now, what do you know about version control system? Can say is very key to how artifacts are shared between platforms and individuals within the DevOps ecosystem. So developers will update and push artifacts into version control system. So things like their code, things like images, things like HTML files, and any person or system that needs it will go to download those artifacts from the version control system and use them. So what we want to do today is basically, as a DevOps person, how do we use the version control system? Not just downloading stuff from it, sometimes also if we sort of engage in major project, it might make sense to write some code as a DevOps guy as well. So if we need to write code as a DevOps person, DevOps 2, okay, we go out here. So if we don't need to write code, maybe because we are doing some sophisticated stuff. So we're doing some coding. It might make sense to pardon me, it might make sense to push that new code into a version control system. Maybe we call it maybe new code on the version control system. So you can see that for people that played with my repo yesterday, I can see a lot of people already copying that. Let's see Firefox. Let's see. Can't really see them. Okay, so 5 people are basically copying this code, and this is how you will share stuff. So we need to understand it because this is very, very fundamental to how you would work within DevOps. So if I, as a DevOps person, what you're going to be doing is uploading artifact, downloading artifact, and kind of playing with them within the DevOps space. So how does this work? So we're going to kind of strip things down and do like um, sort of version control 101. So I'm going to kind of create a scenario, and then we're going to use that to kind of explain stuff. So let's create a problem, and then try to solve that problem. Solving that problem, we'll be able to explain version control a little bit better after this introduction. So let's create a problem. Okay, don't like this. One time you do that. Okay, cool. All right. So the problem I'm going to create, let's see here. Let's do Vim problem. Okay, so problem is that as a DevOps resource, you are being asked to document and share steps taken to prepare to prepare you to prepare a a VM as a web server. That's just a task we've done, but you've been asked to document it. Document should be uploaded to a version control system. Full stop. Okay, cool. So this is the task. Okay, so let's cut the problem. So this is the problem. So you've been, as a DevOps guy, you've been asked to document and share steps taken to prepare VM as a web server. Come as a developer. Okay, this some sort of repetition there. Let's see. Okay. I think we have a repetition there. So web server. And let's delete the rest. Okay, cool. So let's cut the problem. So as a DevOps, so you've been asked to document and share steps taken to prepare a VM as a web server. Document should be uploaded to a VS system, a version control, a version control VC system. So VS. Let's replace it with a VC, version control system. Okay, so what we are saying is the thing we've been doing, which is spin up VM, install Nginx, blah blah blah. If you wanted to document that and prepare as a document and then share with the rest of the world what we've done, or well, maybe share with our team what we've done, how are we going to go about doing that? The key to that is we do our little task on our system. But ultimately, when we finish, so in this case, we are not coding, we are documenting. So we'll do our documentation and eventually, and after we're done, we will put that in the version control system, which we can then share with the rest of the world. So how do we do that? The first thing we have to do is obviously you need to find a version control system. In this case, we are using GitHub as our version control system. See here. Let's go back one step. So what we are using is GitHub. Okay. And I think I did ask us to create an account ahead of the cohort. So just make sure everybody has an account to play with. But GitHub is not the only version control system that is out there. So there are loads, so many. So for example, there's another one called Bitbucket. I'm gonna give us a list and put it on Slack for us to kind of look at. Because it's an interview question. They might say, what version control system are you used to? You can say, I've used GitHub, I've used Bitbucket. On the Azure platform, there's something called Azure DevOps, which also has its own repo as well. Even AWS has its own repo as well, AWS repository. So there's so many version controls out there. So many, so many. GitLab has its own, they all have their own, but this is the most common because it's kind of neutral. It is not owned by any cloud provider. This has just been around for like forever. So GitHub is more common, but the good thing about version control systems is that either GitHub or Bitbucket or the AWS platform or the Azure DevOps platform, all those which are all versions of version control systems, the way you're going to interact with them, the way you talk to them is essentially the same. You will use a command line tool called Git to talk to them. So if you want to engage them and download, upload, as we saw in our previous exercise, which we use the git clone to kind of download stuff. And if you want to upload stuff to use, is a git command that you will use. So it wouldn't matter if you're on GitHub or you're on Azure DevOps or you're on Bitbucket. The concept, the arrangement is the same. So you always, do whatever you want to do on the platform. But when it comes to downloading stuff and uploading it up to the platform, it wouldn't matter if you're on Bitbucket or on GitHub. So if you know one, essentially you'll be able to work on the other ones as well. So that's the summary of it. So you won't have to know so many version control systems. As I've said to you, there's so many of them, but the way you engage them is the same. So if you know one, you'll be able to work on others as well. So going with this illustration, the task at hand is to document what we've done. So the first thing we need to do if you want to do that documentation is I'm going to go to my home location on the repository. If you look at it, if I click on repository, I have so many things I've done in the past. So, but for this task, I've been asked to basically document what we've done. So we can call it, we can create a new repository within this account. So you will say new repo. So it will be under your account name. So let's call it documentation. Documentation. And let's just do /week2, something like that. And then you can put a description. This is to document the web hosting task. Simple as that. And then you want to make it public. And then you just create repository. And then you see that here. Repository is created, blah, 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 blah. So the repo is kind of created. But the thing is that the repo, there's nothing in the repo. Okay. There's nothing in the repo, and even though it's created, you can't access it for now. So you can start creating new files or uploading file. Let's say we want to create new file on it. Okay, so we can just say this is the beginning of the document. So let's call it readme document, readme doc. Let's just call it that. And then we just say this is the start. This is let's call it the let's call it web hosting. Web hosting documentation as the title, documentation as the title. Okay. And then what we want to do is we want to save it. So saving is commit change. So we want to save it. And then when we save it, we want to give it like a tag to remember what we did. So we just say we updated the README document, blah, 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 and then we say commit to save it. And then it's saved. So now if I go to here, remember I'm doing everything in GitHub. If I go here and I share this with you, anybody in the world, so let me put them this channel here. To share that on here. We should be able to access the page and actually look at it. And that's the video. So if you were like a team member, that's how you would obviously see the file and say, okay, this is what you're working on, etc. So what are the few key things here? The key thing here is the document file is being created. You can look at it. We only just created a single line. It's in this repo. This is the repository documentation with two within my account called TechBlitz. So if you look here, you've got TechBlitz is my account documentation, and in that documentation with two, I have a main branch, which is branching is almost like a way to kind of manage the content of this repo such that I can have different variants of it. So it's almost like creating folder within a big folder. So I can say currently there's a subfolder called main. I can create another folder, maybe call it anything I want. But by default, a main branch will be created for you, which is called main. If you need to kind of have different versions of this, you can create another subfolder, another folder. You can call it maybe version 2 or whatever, and then you can then have different versions of this document in different folders. But for now, by default, you're gonna have the repo, which is the repository, and a branch within the repo where the document is stored. This is very important. I'm kind of sort of starting early. This is going to easily kind of blow out now. So it's very important you kind of, just tag along with me. Because I'm trying to kind of simplify the terms, but we're going to be using the right term as we go along. But at least early stage, we're just going to use the term that is easy to understand. So one thing you may have noticed is I might add another file. I can say maybe create a new file. I can say let's call it index. Let's call it glossary. No, let's call it oh dear, I think I lost that. Let's go back. So let's call this file readme2. Read me readme2 dot doc, something like that. Let's call it that. And this is a continuation, something like that. Let's save that. We can commit this as well, makes it 2 files. And let's just commit it, and then we end up with 2 files. Okay, we got doc1, doc2. These are the 2 documents. Okay. Now we are creating this document. We can make it accessible to anyone. Anyone can download it. For example, if I spin up an EC2 machine real quick, let me spin one up real quick and just call it a node. Okay, node. Ba, 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 ba. Let's call it a node, and then we just launch it. We're not really doing much on it. Just launch it. Choose master class and just launch it real quick. While that is sort of going on, just gonna create a machine so we can see how I'm gonna be very, very quick on this machine. So copy. You have to pardon me, I'm gonna connect from here just to speed things up quickly. But you should connect from the from your local terminal. But because I want to save time, I'm just gonna connect from here real quick. So this repo we have here, this is holding the file. So it's the way we're going to share our file sort of documentation artifact with the rest of the team. All right. So the rest of the team could be a team member. It could also be sharing it on a machine. Okay. So this content, for example, if I wanted to kind of get it across on a machine. So let's say for this machine, for example, we already connected. Okay, console. Yeah, we already have the machine. So this repo we have, which is document1, document2, I can, because it's now in GitHub, I can pull it down on any kind of target machine I want. For example, I wanted to put it on this machine. There's nothing on here at the moment. If I install Git on this machine, sudo yum install Git -yes, just to do everything in one go. You can just install, and then we won't have to ask you any questions. I'm installing Git, which is the tool you will use to engage. So this is going to download and install. Okay. Now with Git, I can use Git to download this artifact onto that machine. So all I need to do is go to week 2, and I'll say go to code. I have to specify HTTPS here. It's very important. And then I'll do a copy, HTTPS copy. And then I'll come here and I'll do git clone. And paste. And then it's done. If I do ls, I will see the directory, and I can go to it. And I'll say ls, and then you can see those 2 document files. This is on the Linux machine I created. There's nothing also stopping me as a user. So let's go to the diagram. So what we've done is we've created a new repo here. So if we just copy this and just put it here and call that documentation. So that documentation is what we just put onto this VM. So this was not it. So the documentation, which is the repository, the stuff we have there, which the guy doing the documentation, the guy put the document into GitHub here. That's been pulled down on this VM. Okay. Anybody else can still go to that repo. For example, this DevOps guy can also go and pull the documentation down that somebody else has created on his own local machine. It doesn't have to be on a VM. For example, I could access that and pull that down on my local machine as well. How do I do that? So let's say, for example, this is my local machine. This is not AWS anything. This is me. You can see Olusegun here. I can make a directory. Let me make a directory. mkdir. Let's call it week 2. I'm gonna go into week 2. Currently, there's nothing in week 2 because I just created the directory. I can do a git clone also. Oh dear. Git clone. And then I can clone that repo. So HTTP again, copy, and then paste. Okay, if I ls now, it's there. Then see document with 2 ls. You can see that those 2 documents are sitting here now. And that is how you will share files. It is very important that we understand that the way we would engage the files here is using git command. That's how you will do a clone. A clone is to download the content, and you can then clone the content onto whatever platform, whether your local machine or a VM. It's still going to be git clone. It all depends on where you are running it. If you're running on your local machine, it comes onto your local machine. If you're on a Windows machine, let me show that to you real quick. Okay. If you're on Windows machine, it's going to be git bash. So you launch your git bash. Let's show that real quick. Stop share. And then share screen. On a Windows machine, it will be a case of just, let's close this one out. So what you need to do is just go ahead again, do git bash, launch it. So obviously the repo in question is the template repo, which I do not have here. So let me go find it. GitHub templates. Okay, that goes in templates. You go to repositories, documentation with 2, and then you go to code, you go HTTPS, you copy, and Bob is your uncle. So you go here, and then you can do, depending on what you want to put it, you can say, I don't want to mess things up. I'm going to make a directory. You call it with 2 also. And then you can cd to with 2. And then you can do git clone. And then you can then paste your stuff. Then you download it. And you seed into, and then you ls, you can see there's something called documentation. You can seed into documentation. When you ls, you then save that. And this is how you would download the document, obviously as an external person, because you are not the owner of the repo. You will not be able to tamper with the content. You can download the content, but you cannot update or upload the content. So you have like a README access to the document. So we look at the analogy we are kind of playing with. We are saying that, where is it? This is the chap that is the author of the document, is creating documentation, is pushing into the repo. We are sort of downloading it, maybe on a VM or maybe on our own system as well, using git clone to do the download. The only problem here is that if we wanted to participate in uploading documents, it's going to be tricky because we do not have write access to the repo. We only have read access to the repo. Okay. All right. So we only have read access to the repo. Okay, cool. Now, let's see. Now, let's now assume that on this machine, which is where we kind of downloading, we wanted to participate and also want to upload to this repo. How are we going to do it? As in order to upload into this repo, you can do it in two ways. One way would be to sign in, which I did, and do all your manipulation on this web page, which is no ID. Nobody really does that. The other approach is to actually do some basic configurations on this platform that then gives you right access to this platform, so that the manipulation of the files that you have of the files that you'll be doing will not be done on the web page, but you will be able to do it locally. So what that means is you will not just be downloading files here. So let's see, ls. You will not just be downloading the files here, but you'll be able to upload the files back. Say you make some changes to the files. So for example, so the files are in here. So let's say we do like Notepad. So open Notepad up. And then we go find the files, open. Now the file is in downloads. And then we say is week 2. Let me see where it is. Maybe it's not in download. I think it might be, bear with me, please. Where are we? So the PWD. So you are in user week 2, C user week 2. So we go to PC. This is why I don't like Windows. I get lost. C users. User, I think. And then we have week 2. Documentation. And then just say all files. Now you can see the file says if you open this Dr. Me, this is the file on your local system. So we wanted to change this now, web hosting documentation. And then we say this is an update done locally. To be pushed back to the repo. So let's say we save this, okay? We just say save. And then if you check here on the local, so we kind of made the change locally on our machine. Well, how do we make sure that that change reflects on the actual repository where it's created? So if you look here on the repo now, it's still carrying the old thing, but we may have updated it locally on our machine. But we want to push this update back, and we don't want to just mess around and do the change on here. How do you ensure that you can locally make the change, not just download the files, but locally manipulate the files and push those files back? The way to do that is to do a security key exchange that will be generated from your local machine, and then pushing it into the repo that manages the file. What do I mean? Recall that when we created the repo was created on the GitHub platform. And currently now, I am just an end user. I don't even have sign-in access to the files, but I can download the files, but I cannot upload to the files, upload to the repo. If I want to be able to upload to the repo, I need to create some keys and have those keys put into this account on the repo. So the first thing you want to do, if you want to be playing with downloading and uploading files into a repo, is you need to do a key exchange. So the first thing is you need to sign in. So this will not be to your to someone else's repo, but your repo in this case. So in my case, I think, let me see, it's just, I think it's template. Really, I have. Okay. So I've allocated into my own GitHub account, but that still doesn't give me access. It only means that I can manipulate the files on the web platform here, but that's not what I want to do. I wanted to be able to push the content I have here, which I have updated. So for example, I've used the notepad to update the document. The document on my local machine is different to what is showing on the web hosting. Because if you look at the readme.doc on the platform, it's still showing web hosting documentation. But I have updated it locally. I've added an extra file, but it's not reflecting here. Okay. But I wanted to make it to reflect. So how do I do that? Of course, I can manually just say edit, and I can copy what is in this notepad, and I can just do select all, do a copy, and then come here and just whack it on top and just say paste and paste it. That is not great. I could do that, but that's not how you would typically do things. So let's kind of just cancel that change. Okay. We're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it the ideal way. So what's the ideal way? The ideal way is 3 steps. The first step will be to do a key exchange. So you have to generate a key on your own local machine, which is your Windows machine, and you have to make that key available to your GitHub account. So what that key is called, we call a public key. So we're just going to be a key exchange. You will create you create a private public key locally, and you present your public key to GitHub. So that will allow GitHub to know you, so that you will be able to easily and transparently authenticate to GitHub without having to provide a username and password. So how do I do that? The first thing is, let's look at where we will place the key. So you go here on your GitHub account. You have to authenticate first. You go here and you go to settings. And in settings, there's a place called SSH GPG keys. And this is where you add a key. Okay, and you'll be asking what key. So they will not be your AWS key or your Azure key. This will be a key you will newly generate by yourself. This step is important because when you go to new companies, because you need access to their repo, this step is also something that they probably have to do for you, or you have to do for yourself. It's a quick way to find out if somebody is, genuinely a DevOps person, because this is always the first task that you do because you need access to a repo, their repo. So it's important to understand this step. So the repo that they were going to give to you, you're going to have to create some keys to be able to access the repo. So the admin probably will do it for you transparently, or they might actually do it yourself. So in that case, because we are the admin, we are everything, we're going to do that step ourselves. So what we need to do is we say we're going to add new key to this account on GitHub. Say new key. And let me call this from my Windows, from Windows. You can give any name you want. So that's going to be the key, and then you put the key here. So this is the title of the key. The key actually goes there. So what exactly is the key? The key is something you have to generate locally yourself on your local machine, and then you then copy that key on here. So we're about to save the key, but we don't have the key. So to get the key, you have to generate it locally on your machine. So if you're on Windows machine, all you have to do is, again, go git bash. Okay. You then say, to generate the key, say SSH keygen, key generate. That's the command, SSH key generate. You then say, you just hit enter. You say, I want to create a private key. Again, enter. In my case, the key already exists. In your case, it might not be. So you might not get this warning. So I'm gonna say just overwrite. So you might not get that warning. And then it will just generate the key. Say enter a passphrase. Do not enter anything. Just keep pressing enter key, and the key will be generated for you. Literally, it's just SSH key gen, enter, 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 and then the key will be generated for you. When the key is generated, it will show you where the keys are. There will be 2 keys. They will be generated in this location, SSH there, and in that location there are two files. So we can go to the location to see what's up there. So we can cd to c/users/user .ssh. You can go to that directory and then we'll say ls. You can see those a couple of keys. Let's do ls-ltr. So you can see some things created. So what is important to us are the ID files, identity files, ID RSA and ID RSA.pub. The .pub is, so the key that is created for you will be two versions of it. There will be the private key and the public key of the private key. So the .pub is the public to the private key. This private key should never leave your machine. You must never share this. What you always share with people is the .pub file. And the quick way to have people fired in a company is to share their private key. Anytime anybody asks you for a key, always share the .pub key. Doesn't matter who has this key, it's fine. The public key file is fine. That is the one you will share with GitHub as well. You will not be sharing your private key with GitHub, but the key in question now will be this .pub file. So what we do is we need to open up the content of this file. We'll say cat to open it. We'll say ID rsa.pub. And then you cut it to open it up. And this is what you get. Now what you have to do is carefully copy the file. So when you are copying, don't go and copy like this and just being a bit careless. So you have to copy from just the last character carefully. And a lot of people get this wrong and it will give them a lot of problems. So you just copy it like that very carefully. No extra thing mistakenly copied. Just copy that, right click and do a copy. And then you're good. Very, very surgical. And then you bring that key here and then you paste it there. And then you're on your way to add the key. And then you're good. So that's my key because I've been using my platform a long time. So you can see from Windows, I have the key now. So what this means is potentially now, I can now do a lot of things locally from my machine. So if I want to update the files, if I want to update anything in this repo, so let's go back to the repo. Let's go back to the repositories. So repositories, I can't see anything there. So let's just go to template repos. Documentation. What that means now is if I want to update this now, I don't have to do it here. I can do it on my local machine. Any questions? Somebody asking. Okay. So I don't have to do it on here. I can then begin to do it locally. What does that mean? So next time I want to download this repo now, because I want to be able to update it, not by coming here, because I've got the power now to update, not just to download, but to update. If I come here now, if I want to kind of create the download, I will not be using HTTP anymore. I'll be using SSH. So the way I'm going to kind of clone the page, because I'm cloning to update, not just cloning to view. I'm cloning with almost the mind to update the files, not just to view. Okay. So now let's look at this. So because of the way we kind of cloned earlier, so let's go back to what we had before. If I just take a little bit of a step back, if you recall when we cloned as HTTP, if you recall. That just basically handicaps us a little bit in terms of not being able to update the file. So you can update locally, but you will not be able to push your content back, which is a shame. So the way you would do it, if you are intending to download and update, is you would not clone this way. You will clone using the SSH. So you just say clone with an SSH, okay? So we're just gonna then redo this step. So we're gonna take a step back in the folder. I'm going to delete everything. Just close this up. I'm going to remove that directory rm-fr to remove the directory. The documentation is deleted. So I'm going to do a new clone. And so what I would do is I will come here and I will do a new clone. I will not use HTTPS, I will use SSH. I will then I will copy this. I will go on the command on the git bash. I will say git clone, paste that. Okay, it's saying blah, blah, blah. Okay, right. This would happen because I already have some keys. If you come across this problem, if you're doing this for the first time, you won't have this problem. In my case, I have this problem because I've created many keys in the past. So bear with me. If you have this problem, it's not a big deal. So what you do is just open up this file. You won't have to do this step. If you're doing this for the first time, you won't have this problem. So I'm just gonna delete this GitHub files. Just bear with me. If you have this problem, two things you can do. Hopefully the guys are new, you won't have it. If you have it, you can just ping me because it might be a bit advanced for you. But if you have this problem, two ways you can do is you can easily delete this file, or you can just update it. I would suspect that the people that are new won't have this because you wouldn't have done this before. So I will just edit this file, let's see, and I will go here. I'll just say dd to delete, and then I will save, and then I will then run the git clone again. And I'll say yes. And then this is what you should have got if I didn't have that key already on my machine. So don't worry about what happened. This is the experience you would have if you do the git clone for the first time. Obviously, if you run into the problem I ran to, you can ping me. I'll be more than happy to help you, but you shouldn't have the problem. So this then downloads in a different way. Now we're downloading using the Git protocol, not using the HTTP protocol, which was what we used. The HTTP protocol, you can only kind of view, you will not be able to update. So with this now, you can download, which is view, and you can then also update as well. If you ls, you see the content, you can cd, and then you can cd to the location, and then you ls, you can see those two files. Okay, I can now begin to update the file. The file on the system, I can use Notepad to update them. So I can launch my Notepad, and I go find the files. Where's the file? pwd, the file is there. So let me copy it. That's the folder where the file is. I can copy. I can go to Notepad. I can say open. Okay, paste. Okay, it doesn't understand it, so you have to take it one step at a time. So if he doesn't understand it, just go to my PC and then do let's remove the C in front. Let's do C user with two, enter documentation, and then say all else so it can show you everything. And then let's just say we want to update just the readme.doc one. So it only has web hosting, which is kind of the same as what we have on the platform. Let's see. So the same as what we have. If you click on this readme file now, it's a web hosting documentation. Okay, we can then begin to play with it. We can say on Notepad, this is another line added to the documentation. Now we save that. So this is now saved locally. It's not reflecting here, remember, but on a local machine, it's saved. So if I close this, it's saved on the local machine here. Where is it? On here. But it's not made it to the machine. It's not made it to the repo. So it's still here, but it's updated. Now, if I want to push this new update to GitHub so that it would show up here, remember we updated this README doc. If you wanted to push that up, what we need to do is we need to say git add, the one we just updated, git add README, what's the file? README, bear with me. Yeah, that's the phone. So one we just updated is the README doc. So we say git add README doc. That means basically we are preparing it to push it to the repo, and then we say git commit minus add minus message, and then we'll specify a way to remember what we've done. We just, what did we do? We do a new update. I'm going to explain this in a bit better. Okay. So we'll do the commit, and then we'll do the git push. So it's 3 steps: add, just to update the file. We then do a commit, and then we'll do a push. I want to show us the result, then I will come and explain this in a bit. Okay, so if we go back, so we'll see this. If you refresh, you will see the new change. You can see now it's taking effect, it's showing up. So what have we done? So remember, the first thing to do is to do the clone. Go here, do a clone. Anytime you do a clone, always find a fresh page to clone to. So if you don't go and clone it in a place where you already kind of have something going on, you will just crowd it. It's better to always create a new directory so you don't have things sort of, working against each other. So we did the clone, right? And then after the clone, we basically use a file editor. In this case, we use Notepad to find the file on our system after doing the clone. We want to go and look for the file. You have to know where the file is. In our case, it's in here. See user week 2, blah, blah, blah. And then we say all documents so everything can show up. And then we say document and blah, blah, blah. Then we can add a third line. And we'll save that again. And now when you do that, obviously it won't reflect here yet. So if we go here, it doesn't reflect. Even if you refresh, because you have not pushed the update. So what you then do again is you git add it, git add readme. Okay, system is a bit readme doc. Okay, and then you give it, so git add is basically you're preparing the file to use, and then you say git commit. Commit is way to save the change locally on your machine in your Git system that's running locally on your machine. So Git commit. It's always important to give it like a commit or save message so that you remember in future what you were doing. You can just say was adding a third line. Give it any title you want. It's just for you to, when you're looking at it, you remember, oh, what was I doing that time? Why did I do this commit? All this is sort of local. So this is all the changes you are doing is local to your machine. because the way Git works, which we're going to explain a little bit further next week, is there's a server side to Git and there's a local side to Git, which we're going to explain a bit better next week. But for now, it's important to just practice it, see what the result is, and we can go over the theory of what is going on. You add, you commit, and then you do a Git push. And when you push, the update will show here. So you now see that, of course, you can make the change here, or you can make the change there. So it's important to possible just stick to making the change locally. It doesn't mean you can't make the change directly on the servers, the sort of the GitHub page as well. But usually in the enterprise system, the enterprise world, the change you're going to be making, you're not going to be making it locally on the machine. Sorry, you're not going to be making directly on the version control system. You'll be pulling the files down, and you're going to be making those changes locally, and you're going to be pushing them into the repo. Because that's how you're going to engage with your colleagues in the company where you work, because everybody will then work on stuff and then push into a repo. You share the repo, people push, then you download, they download, you update, they update, and that's how it works. Nobody would really be doing things directly on the repo here, but it's good to start that way. But ultimately, you need to push your key on the repo into the version control system, which then gives you write access, ability to write or update the files. So the key thing is that you have to download it the right way. So the clone, after you've exchanged your key, the clone should be based on SSH. You do the copy. So if I was doing that fresh, I will find a new place. I'm just going to create a new directory. I'm going to call it maybe new dir, just for lack of a better word. And I'm going to go there because I don't want to mess things around. I'm going to do a fresh clone. And then in them, BWD, I would then go into the documentation, and then the files are there. Okay, and then you can begin to play with the file. So next week, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at a better tool that we can use for editing, not Notepad. There's a tool called Visual Studio Code, which is what we're going to be using going forward to do our editing, not Notepad. And then we would next week, by the grace of God, we will have our first shot at AI. Because we need to begin to start using that. And that will be our first rodeo into using AI. So yeah, that's what I have. So this task for this week would be a little bit. We're gonna stretch you a little bit this week. I don't expect you to have all the answers, but leverage all the tools out there to have a good go. If you have a problem, let us know. But yeah, the work begins now. Thank you very much. I know I've kind of overshot the time, but I do apologize. But I wanted to kind of get this to a good place. All right. Any questions or comment before we wrap up for the week?
You have said a lot. Thank you, Ross.
Excellent.
Excuse
All right.
me.
Okay.
Excuse
Yeah,
me,
go on.
please. Can we get the codes used, the history, please, before we close that, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. I will share them. Thank you. I will share. All right then. Thank you, everyone. You have a blessed week. We share the code on the group. Have a blessed week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.